How's it going, world of YouTube? This is A New Breed coming back with another one. Well, we all know that fire is a very useful tool and an essential tool in a doomsday situation, or any situation for that matter. We need it to boil our water, to sanitize. We need it to warm ourselves and to cook our food. So in this video, I'll be going over not fire, but the different types of wood that you will be using or what you can come across and the characteristics of the wood. It may not seem of the utmost importance, but believe me, knowing what to burn and when to burn it can ultimately save your life in a grid down situation. Now, when it comes down to it, you have two different types of wood. You have your hardwoods and your softwoods. Now, understanding your situation and where you're at, your location, which ones to burn, which ones hold more moisture, and which ones take longer to season will ultimately help you burn wood, make heat, and also cook more efficiently. So let's go ahead and start breaking this down, and I'll show you what types of woods there are and how to identify them. Now we'll talk about your hardwoods and your softwoods. Your hardwood is your broadleaf. High density, burns slow, has a very slow, steady heat output. Then you have your softwoods, which are your conifers, your fast growing evergreens. Low density, burns fast. They put out rapid high heat output, but the density of the softwood is approximately half of a hardwood. So it takes twice as much softwood to produce the same amount of heat as hardwood. The reason why I'm mentioning that is you don't want to be forced to feed your fire and not be able to sleep or burn through your logs too quickly. Now from there, we go into two completely different types of wood, regardless of hardwood or softwood. You have your seasoned wood versus your unseasoned green wood. Your seasoned wood has been set out and dried properly, which means the moisture content is low, hoping you get it below 20%. Then you have your unseasoned firewood, wood that is green, that has retained a lot of moisture. When you burn it, it takes a lot of energy to get rid of that moisture before you get a proper burn, and your fire can possibly go out. In a grid down situation, you have to burn what you have to burn. But if you can find or have access to seasoned wood, prefer to do so, especially if you're going to have to burn with something with a chimney or out of a wood stove. Now, when it comes to splitting, hardwoods and softwoods also split different. There are different ways based off of the diameter of their wood to season your wood. The larger pieces, you want to break them down smaller, allowing the moisture to leave and also being able to allow air into the wood. Your smaller rounds, you just go ahead and stack them up. But ultimately, understanding that different woods split different based off of the density of the woods. Now we're going to go and get into the types of woods, and I'll tell you a little bit more about them. We will get into the stacking of firewood only because it helps for seasoning, but for right now, we'll get into the types of firewood so you know what to look for and what to burn. And not only a grid down situation, but if you ever want to switch over to using wood as heat rather than gas. Now, before we move on in this video, I will go ahead and tell you that I do not condone the cutting of live trees, but in a survival situation, you have to do what you have to do. Now let us continue. Now, I could get into all the specifications of the different types of wood, but ultimately right now, I'm just going to give you the basis of some of the woods, the description, their characteristics, and pictures, so you'll be able to identify when you're out in the world or you need to get some wood for burning. First, we'll start off with the mighty oak tree. Now this tree generally is very dense, hot burning, but you have to season it for at least a year before you should burn it. This isn't one you should just cut down green and attempt to burn. It won't burn very well. Also, it starts up a little rough, even when seasoned, so ultimately, it's not a good wood to start with if you're going to try and throw it directly on the fire. Now the next tree is the maple. This one is difficult to split. It's very inefficient and hot burning, but this should also be seasoned for at least 1 year. You can split it down and do as many pieces as you want to, but again, it's difficult to split. So seasoning it normally takes a little bit of time because of the moisture content. This is another good wood to use once your fire is established. Probably not one you want to use offhand. This is cherry wood. This one, it burns at a medium heat. Has a sweet and pleasing aroma to it, especially when burning. It does tend to spark a lot, but it doesn't produce lots of smoke. And the reason why that's good is where there's smoke, there's fire. People can track you. The less amount of smoke, the harder it is to track. Now, if you need a good fire starter, birch wood is excellent. It burns quickly, bright, hot burning flame. Good fire starter. But once again, overall, it's a very quick burning wood. So once you get your fire started with this, I'd switch over to the hardwoods if you have access to them. Next, we're going to bring up a tree that is well known, the pine. Now the pine has a very high sap content, which makes it burn messy, but is great for a fire starter. Now if you're going to be burning indoors, I would recommend against it only because it makes massive amounts of soot and creosote. But I wouldn't use this exclusively as your only firewood. Now if you're outdoors, it's okay. But once again, be careful, keep the area clear. And remember, the pine tree and the needles can be made into tea. Next is elm. This one is a very dense hardwood. It's very difficult to split, and it also doesn't smell the greatest when it burns. But it burns consistently and at a medium range heat for a long period of time. Once again, this is another wood that would need to be seasoned for at least a year. Last but not least on this list, we're going to get on chestnut. That one's pretty easy to identify, but there are numerous different types of chestnut. This one, it burns and it splits pretty easily. Starts up good. It does burn at a low heat, sparks a lot and heavy smoke. So you generally get backdraws when you have your easier, faster burning woods that are easy to ignite. When it comes to stacking firewood to season it, sometimes it's easier to stack in straight lines or in circles. The best bet is to get as much airflow through as possible so it allows for the moisture to be taken out of the wood. Drying generally is in spring, after the rain, into summer. The heat will dry the wood out, but try to make sure to keep it out of the elements the best you can. And then from there, it should be ready to burn within a year or two. I know that seems like a while, but you have separate piles of wood in order to rotate them in and out. And you can also sometimes, to make it burn longer, mix your seasoned wood with your dry wood, not the green. So, in a survival situation, if you're ever out in the woods, of course, try your best to find a downed tree. And if you find one that's downed, there's a simple trick to tell how seasoned it is. If you knock on it, you can find out how moist or if it's dry based off of the knock. If you knock and it sounds hollow, generally it's pretty well seasoned. But if you knock and it makes a very dense sound, it still has a lot of moisture. So starting that fire could really be just as easy as how dry the firewood is. Kinda puts a new meaning to knock on wood, doesn't it? But please remember, regardless of whatever situation, please be safe when dealing with fire. Clear all debris and make sure that if you're going to leave the area, fire is put all the way out. Because regardless of the situation, the last thing you want to do is burn down more than what you initially set to burn. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And it's greatly appreciated. Thank you for watching. And don't forget to click the bell icon to get all the updates and future videos that I'll be doing on my channel.